Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely unprecedented geopolitical shockwave that is actively reshaping the map of West Africa. Right at the end of January 2024, three nations dropped a bombshell announcement that sent tremors through the entire international community. Basically, they're unilaterally withdrawing from their regional bloc. It's a massive move that the media is already dubbing Sahelexit. So we're going to break down exactly how this happened, what it actually means for the millions of people living there, and the ripple effects it's absolutely going to have on global security. Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to follow a clear domino effect today. First, the rise of Sahelexit. Then, coups and coercive sanctions. Third, the economic and social fallout. Fourth, a widening security vacuum. And finally, ECOWAS at a crossroads. All right, Section 1, the rise of Sahelexit. We really need to wrap our heads around the sheer immense scale of the political fracture happening right now. Just think about the massive geographic footprint of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. To put this into perspective, these three landlocked countries make up a contiguous landmass that is roughly the size of India, literally the size of India. So when they announced their withdrawal, it wasn't just some minor political footnote. We are talking about the physical tearing away of a colossal portion of the Sahel region from the rest of the bloc. Now, before we get into how it all broke apart, let's briefly establish what exactly they're leaving. They are withdrawing from ECOWAS. That's the Economic Community of West African States. It was established back in 1975 in Lagos, Nigeria, and it was specifically built to be the economic and democratic engine of the region. It brought 15 nations together to promote integration, shared policies, and stability. For decades, this has been Africa's oldest and most active regional economic community. So what went wrong? Well, that brings us to Section 2, coups and coercive sanctions. This is the breaking point between these member states and the institution. The catalyst for all of this was a rapid-fire succession of military coups that completely destabilized the region. It's kind of like dominoes falling. Look at the timeline. Mali had coups in 2020 and 2021. Guinea followed suit in 2021. Then Burkina Faso saw two coups in 2022, and Niger experienced one in July of 2023. Suddenly, out of nowhere, you have transitional military governments leading 4 of the 15 ECOWAS member states. And naturally, this triggered the bloc's strict anti-coup protocols, putting its democratic mandate to the ultimate test. In response, ECOWAS didn't hold back. They deployed aggressive, coercive measures designed to force a clearly scheduled return to constitutional order. They suspended the affected countries from decision-making, slapped travel bans on implicated leaders, froze financial assets, and implemented comprehensive suspensions of commercial exchanges, along with hard border closures. These were heavy-handed tactics meant to pressure the military juntas. But, as we'll see, these retaliatory measures ultimately yielded incredibly mixed results. And this created a fundamental clash of perspectives. On one side, you have the departing states, who've actually formed a new alliance of Sahelian states, or AES, and they claim they're simply asserting their autonomy. They're framing their withdrawal as a direct reaction to those harsh sanctions and a complete rejection of what they perceive as international, particularly French, influence over ECOWAS. But on the other side, ECOWAS insists it's just upholding its 2001 constitutional convergence principles, which mandate democratic governance and the strict separation of powers. Which leads us to a really vital question for Section 3, economic and social fallout. What actually happens to everyday life when these high-level political disagreements become hard, physical borders? 1. Just the number 1. That is exactly how many years a withdrawal legally takes under Article 91 of the ECOWAS revised treaty. A member state is legally bound by the treaty for a full year after giving formal notice. But, and this really highlights the depth of the fracture, Mali's foreign ministry has already explicitly rejected this timeline. They've boldly declared that they consider their departure to have immediate effect. No waiting around. Now, the economic shockwaves of this split are going to be severe. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are completely landlocked. They rely heavily on coastal ECOWAS members for their trade routes, so leaving the bloc likely means the reintroduction of tariff barriers and massively increased transaction costs. It's a logistical nightmare. It also throws a massive wrench into the West African Economic and Monetary Union, with some countries inside ECOWAS and 3 outside trying to coordinate economic policies and maintain a shared currency becomes remarkably complex. It really threatens the long-term dream of a single, robust market for the region. But honestly, beyond the macroeconomics, there is a profound human story here. Back in 1979,
ECOWAS adopted this landmark protocol that allowed visa-free entry and residence for citizens across member states. The permanent withdrawal of the AES nations puts this amazing freedom at massive risk. Reintroducing tough border controls deeply threatens the livelihoods of everyday seasonal workers. It disrupts vital migration routes to booming coastal cities like Abidjan and Lagos, and it completely jeopardizes the remittance flows that countless families desperately rely on just to survive.
So the crucial point is that this fracture isn't just about trade or money, it fundamentally destabilizes safety. Let's move to Section 4, a widening security vacuum. We are witnessing a massive security shift in real time. The Sahel already heavily struggles with violent extremism, right? Yet recently, we've seen the complete unraveling of the G5 Sahel security framework. Compounding this is the withdrawal of French military operations, the termination of the UN's MINUSMA mission in Mali, and the repudiation of U.S. military bases in Niger. Because these departing states will no longer be subject to ECOWAS mechanisms, it essentially creates a terrifying counterterrorism vacuum. And you know what they say, nature hates a vacuum. As traditional Western and UN forces exit, new global players are eagerly stepping right in. Russia has significantly raised its influence, allegedly tightening its supervision over private military companies in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Meanwhile, countries like China, Turkey, and Iran are also actively vying for strategic influence. This whole situation completely complicates any kind of unified regional approach to stability. Finally, we really need to shift our focus inward with Section 5, ECOWAS at a crossroads. What does all of this mean for the existential survival of the remaining states? And this brilliantly illustrates one of the bloc's most fundamental internal challenges. When you look at the demographic distribution across the region, there is a massive force dominating the community, and that is Nigeria. ECOWAS is a deeply heterogeneous community, and with Nigeria holding roughly half of the entire population, it acts as the undeniable demographic heavyweight. It's the exact same story with the economy. Nigeria vastly outweighs the other member states in GDP. Now, while Nigeria contributes significantly to peace and security operations, this massive disparity definitely causes friction. Other smaller member states are naturally wary of Nigeria adopting a hegemonic posture, which occasionally makes them somewhat reluctant to fully cooperate. Compounding these internal dynamics is a growing, very real crisis of legitimacy. Critics frequently point out that while ECOWAS has taken an incredibly hardline stance on recent military coups, it completely failed to take strong retaliatory measures when civilian leaders in places like Togo and Côte d'Ivoire circumvented term limits to cling to power. This perceived double standard, being incredibly harsh on coups, but somehow lenient on leaders who manipulate democratic rules, threatens to severely erode public trust in the institution's commitment to genuine governance. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly high-stakes question. Can ECOWAS reform its institutions, rebuild that lost trust, and somehow reunite this vital region? Or will Sahelexit serve as the catalyst that permanently fractures West Africa? The dominoes are currently falling, and the entire international community is going to be watching very closely to see exactly where they land. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.